Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pasyatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langhayate girim yat kripatamaham mande Shri Gurum Deenataranam. Swayambhuva Manu, the emperor of the world, is being referred to here as Muni. Similar to Krishna's use of the phrase Raja Rishi. Similarly, Swayambhuva Manu, although the emperor of the earthly planet, is being described as a Muni. He was a saintly king. And although he was very saintly, being a king, he had to live in the midst of royal opulence. And although he lived in the midst of royal opulence, he was yogamayasu nishnatam. He was always absorbed in although he was absorbed in material enjoyment, nishnatam yogamayasu. Yogamaya. So he was engaged in material happiness due to his duties which he had to perform as a king. But still, Bhagavat Param, because he was a great devotee of Krishna, those bhoga, those material sense enjoyments, abhramsayitum na shekuhu, they could not deviate him from the path of progressive advancement. They could not degrade him to a lower grade of life. We have seen in the previous verse also how Swayambhuva Manu, Emperor Swayambhuva Manu, enjoyed life with his wife and with all his subjects in his kingdom. The kingdom was characterized by not being disturbed by any unwanted principles contrary to the principles of dharma. Celestial musicians used to sing about the reputation of Swayambhuva Manu. Every day, morning and evening, he would listen to Bhagavatam with a loving heart. So, and the characteristic of his palace and his kingdom was the influence of the three miseries of material existence were negated, were eradicated. So we can understand Swayambhuva Manu lived a life of great opulence and sense enjoyment without having to undergo any kind of material misery, and simultaneously he progressed on the spiritual path. He had no material miseries afflicting him within his present life, and after the present life also he did not have to fear degradation to a lower form of life, because next life he was going to go back to Godhead. Now when we look at Swayambhuva Manu's life, the natural question that comes is, if a devotee can enjoy life like this in the midst of family and citizens, great royal opulence, and remain unaffected by material miseries, and at the same time one can execute devotional service. So why doesn't everyone take up Krishna consciousness? Why doesn't everybody become a devotee of Krishna? Such a wonderful life. You are getting to live in royal opulence. You are getting to rule the whole earth. You have no material miseries. no unwanted opposition to his ruling. Citizens were all, there were no activists constantly doing dharna in front of his house. There was nobody in the opposition trying to pull him down. He did not have any problem. Such a wonderful life he led. And at the same time, every day he used to hear Bhagavatam. So what more do we want? Why don't then everybody take up, if everybody is given this kind of opportunity, who would want to say no? You have the best of both, spiritual life as well as material life. But we see generally in life that very few people actually become serious devotees of Krishna. Most people, they become devotees of some devatas, especially of Lord Shiva, Ganesha or Durga. There may be some devotees of Suryadev, some devotees of Somadev, etc. also. But majority of the people, they prefer to become devotees of Lord Shiva or Ganesha or Parvati or Durga. Ultimately, people find it more attractive to worship the devatas. Why this kind of discrepancy? Actually, to understand the reason for this, in the Mahabharata, it is described how after the war of Kurukshetra, the Pandavas got back their kingdom. Duryodhana and his brothers were dislodged from the emperorship of the world, and Yudhishthira Maharaj became the undisputed emperor of the world. After gaining the kingdom back, in due course of time, Uttara gave birth to Parikshit Maharaj, who was the son of Abhimanyu. After Parikshit Maharaj's birth, Yudhishthira Maharaj was still feeling guilty that because of me, because of my desire to become the emperor, so many people and animals were killed in the battle of Kurukshetra. Actually, when the battle of Kurukshetra got completed, at that time also, Yudhishthira Maharaj was feeling very, very guilty that because of him so many people had been killed. So much so that even Lord Krishna could not convince him that there was no fault on his side. Ultimately, the Pandavas had to go to Bhishma Dev, and Bhishma Dev's words finally pacified Yudhishthira Maharaj. So his feeling of guilt subsided. But it was not completely gone. He was still feeling somewhere some guilt was there in his heart. And so he thought, I should atone for my sin of causing so many deaths in that battle of Kurukshetra. How to atone for his sins? He thought, let me conduct an Ashwamedha Yajna. To conduct the Ashwamedha Yajna requires undisputed sovereignty over the whole earth. Every king should accept that Yudhishthira Maharaj is the emperor, and it also requires great wealth. To achieve this, Yudhishthira Maharaj sent his brothers, 4 brothers, in different directions. And all of them went all over the world, and they subjugated all the kings and brought back enough wealth to conduct the Ashwamedha Yajna. When the Ashwamedha Yajna was being conducted, Yudhishthira Maharaj invited all the kings, and kings from all over the world came to attend that sacrifice. The sacrifice was performed very nicely. Even Lord Krishna had come to attend to the Ashwamedha Yajna. Krishna is always the very, very dear friend of the Pandavas. And therefore, when Yudhishthira Maharaj sent him an invitation for the Ashwamedha Yajna, Krishna came very happily from all the way from Dwaraka. After completing the Ashwamedha Yajna, after everything was completed very nicely with all the sages and the various kings who had been come, all their hospitality was taken care, they were given all suitable gifts, and a lot of charity was given away to the Brahmanas and other people, eligible people who had come there. After all this was over, Yudhishthira Maharaj sat down with Lord Krishna and he asked Lord Krishna one question. Yudhishthira Maharaj asked Krishna that, you see, I have seen that Lord Shiva lives in great austerity. He does not even have a proper home to live in. He lives under some tree or in the crematorium. He smears ash all over his body. So he lives in a very austere environment, in a very austere way, without any opulences, devoid of all opulences. He is not surrounded by servants and wearing a lot of ornaments and a lot of servants carrying out his various things, requirements, and a huge palace where he can live in great opulence. None of these things Shiva possesses. Although, of course, he is the master of material nature. He is the husband of Durga Devi. So everything is at his disposal. But still, he lives in a very simple manner and in a very austere manner. On the other hand, we can see that Narayana or Vishnu is the husband of the goddess of Lakshmi. And he lives in great opulence. Always surrounded by so many servants, somebody to carry his umbrella, somebody to fan him with a chamara, somebody to provide him with his footwear, a lot of brahmanas standing around him and singing his glories, and wearing silk cloth, and a lot of wonderful ornaments, Vaidurya, gem, etc., and a beautiful golden helmet, a crown adorned with valuable gems. And his palace is also made of the columns are made of Vaidurya gems. The floor is made of Chintamani. That kind of opulence Narayana lives in. So we see two contrasting personalities, and both of them are great personalities. Now Yudhishthira Maharaj asked Krishna that we see these two contrasting personalities. Now when we look at the devotees of these two personalities, the results achieved by them are the exact opposite of the nature of these two personalities. Lord Shiva's devotees, they live in great opulence. They are blessed with a lot of wealth. Whereas if you look at the devotees of Narayana, they are all akinchana. They are the most poverty-stricken people you will find. So Yudhishthira Maharaj asked Krishna, I am not able to understand this. Why is it like this? That the devotees of these two personalities, the results that they achieve are exact opposite of the natures exhibited by these two personalities. What is the secret behind this? So Lord Krishna, when he heard this question from Yudhishthira Maharaj, he was very happy that Yudhishthira Maharaj had asked such a wonderful question. In response, Lord Krishna, he said that Yasyaham anugrinami harishye tadhanam shanaihi tato adhanam tyajanti asya swajana dukkha dukkhitam. Krishna said, those who become my devotees and those devotees whom I bless, Yasyaham anugrinami, those devotees of mine whom I bless, what happens to them? Harishye tadhanam shanaihi. Slowly, gradually, because of my blessings, I take away all their wealth. They lose all their opulence. Whatever opulence they have, everything they will lose slowly, gradually over a period of time. And further what happens? Tato adhanam, when that devotee becomes bereft of his opulence, tyajanti swajanaha, his relatives and his friends, they reject him, they give him up. And because of losing his opulence and losing his relatives, losing the respect of his relatives and his friends, and being rejected by all of them, what happens is dukkha dukkhitam. He is put into one distress after another. What kind of blessing is this? If you bless someone, you should protect him, you should take care of him and ensure that he doesn't have any distress. But Krishna is saying, those whom I bless, those devotees of mine whom I bless, whatever wealth they have, that also I take away, and I put them into greater and greater distress, such that their relatives and friends reject them and go away. Now, this is very, it is very confusing. Why does Krishna do this? Then Krishna told Yudhishthira that the reason for this, what happens next after this. Krishna said, Satada vitatodyogo nirvinnaha syat dhanehaya. Now, because over a period of time, Shanaihi, Krishna told, Shanaihi, slowly, gradually he will take away all his wealth. Gradually all his relatives and friends will leave him. Gradually, one after another, distresses come in that person's life. So when this happens, the person sees in front of his eyes the futility of his material endeavor. And so therefore, satada vitata udyogaha, he stops working hard in this material world to become rich and to enjoy opulence and to enjoy happiness in the midst of all the relatives. Satada vitatodyogo nirvinnaha syat dhanehaya. Nirvinnaha, he becomes disinterested in dhana ihaya, in accumulating wealth. He loses his interest in that. That is why Krishna Shanaihi, slowly, gradually, he takes away everything from him. If Krishna were to take away everything all of a sudden, then the person will become mentally agitated, he will become totally disturbed, he will not be able to reflect, he will not be able to introspect and see the futility of material endeavor. But because this happens slowly and he's going on trying, one problem is coming, he is trying to solve this. When he solves that, then another problem comes, then another problem comes. He's trying to increase his money, but some expense comes, some medical expense comes, some other problem comes, some issue happens in the family, some unforeseen expenses come. So all his money he keeps spending, and what happens is he is not able to increase his wealth. So he starts seeing, what is this? I'm struggling so hard and nothing is happening and things are going away. And I am trying to, all this endeavor I am doing for all my relatives, they are rejecting me and going, what is the use? Why should I engage in this hard work? So he becomes nirvinnaha syat dhaneha. He loses his interest in accumulating wealth. Now, human beings are social beings. Human beings need to relate with other individuals. We cannot live all alone. We cannot be recluses. It is natural for human beings to seek the company of other human beings. That is why in the material life, people always seek relatives and friends to expand their circle of relatives and friends. And without relatives, what is the meaning of life? What is the meaning of opulence? Just like Arjuna in the beginning of the Bhagavad-gita, he told Krishna, I don't see any point in fighting this battle of Kurukshetra. Why? Because yasyam arthe kangshitam no. Rajyam bhogaha sukhanija. For whose sake we are desiring all this kingdom and wealth and opulence and all these kind of things, they are arrayed in this battle. And if all of them are killed, then what is the use of getting the proprietorship even of the heavenly planets? Because if one has opulence and if one has kingdom to rule over, then it makes meaning if you have relatives and friends to whom you can show off your opulence and kingdom. If there are no relatives and no friends, what is the use of opulence and kingdom? After all, you need all these things to show to others and enjoy in the midst of that kind of social prestige. So, the human beings, it is natural for them to seek company of other individuals. Now, this person has lost interest in accumulating wealth and all his relatives and friends have rejected him. So, where will he go for company? So Krishna says, then what happens is, when he has lost like this, nirvinnaha, When he has become nirvinna, he has become disinterested in dhanehaya, in acquiring wealth, then what happens is, matparaihi kritamaitrasya. He, that person, seeing no other alternative, he starts making friendship with matparaihi. Krishna says, with those devotees who are exclusively dedicated to Krishna. To such people, this person, this devotee becomes attracted and he sees, all my relatives, all my friends, they were all after my wealth. But these devotees are the real nice people. They really, truly, sincerely, they love me. And so he becomes friendly to Krishna's devotees, to those who are exclusively dedicated to Krishna. Matparaihi kritamaitrasya. And then what happens is, when he becomes friendly, when he develops association of the pure devotees of Krishna, then Krishna says, Karishye madanugraham. At that time, Krishna further blesses him. So what is the further blessing that Krishna gives? Krishna says, Tad Brahma Paramam Sukshmam Chinmatram Chinmatram Sad Anantakam Vijnayatmataya Dhiraha Samsarat Pramuchyate. When the devotee makes friendship with other pure devotees, what happens is, he realizes. What does he realize? He realizes that Krishna is Tad Brahma Paramam Sukshmam. That Krishna is that Param Brahman. Just like Arjuna also tells in the Bhagavad-gita, Parabrahma Param Dhama Pavitram Paramam Bhavan. So to understand that Krishna is the Parabrahman, he is the supreme absolute truth. Tad Brahma Paramam Sukshmam. He is the most difficult to know. He is the most Sukshma Tattva, Krishna, to know about Krishna's actual position. As the source of all avatars, as the source even of Narayana, he is very, very Sukshma. If we study the entire Vedas and Upanishads and Vedanta Sutras and all that, very difficult to understand that Krishna is the root of everything. One may be able to very easily understand Brahman. One can even understand Paramatma. One may even be able to understand Narayana. But to understand Krishna, Sukshmam, very difficult. It's not at all easy to understand Krishna from the Vedas. It is possible only by the blessings of a pure devotee, which this devotee has attained. So therefore he understands Tad Brahmam Paramam Sukshmam. Krishna is that Parabrahman. And Chinmatram, Krishna's matras, Krishna's senses are all fully conscious. Our senses are all jada. They have no consciousness. When the senses come in touch with the sense objects, some experience is generated, and we, according to our conditioning, we interpret it either as happiness or as distress. And each sense can do only one function. Our eyes can only see, ears can only hear, but ears are not conscious. Suppose I die today, my soul leaves this body, my eyes will still be there, my ears will still be there. At that time, if you bring some object in front of the eyes, will the eyes be able to see? They cannot see, because the sense objects are all dead matter, they don't have consciousness. But Krishna's senses, Chinmatra, they are fully conscious. That means Krishna's body is completely transcendental. And Krishna's senses can perform any function of any other sense. Chinmatram Sad Anantakam. And Krishna is eternal. Krishna is ever existing. Anantakam, he is infinite. So, having understood this nature of Krishna, Vijnayatmataya Dhiraha, understanding Krishna's nature like this, and not only that, Vijnaya Atmataya, he also understands that I am also spirit soul of Krishna, so I also have the characteristic of Satchidananda. And so then that devotee becomes a dhira, he becomes sober, he becomes fixed up in rendering devotional service to Krishna. He is no more attracted to material sense gratification. And like this, when he becomes a dhira, what happens is, samsarat pramuchyate. He is liberated from this material world. So now you can understand. So when Krishna began, he began by saying, Yasyaham Anugrinami. Then Krishna explained all the entrance steps. So we have to understand, when Krishna says, Yasyaham Anugrinami, what it says is, Yasyaham Anugrinami samsarat pramuchyate. To that devotee whom Krishna blesses, that devotee, he becomes liberated from this material samsara, from this ocean of birth and death. This is the real blessing of Krishna. So the question naturally comes, then why doesn't everybody worship Krishna? So Krishna further tells Yudhishthira Maharaj that Ato mam suduraradhyam hitva anyan bhajate janaha. That Krishna says, but the general mass of people, mam hitva, they give me up. Anyan bhajate, they surrender, they become devotees of anya devatas. Why? Because ato mam suduraradhyam, to worship me, aradhya of Krishna is suduraradhyam. Duraradhyam means very difficult to worship. Suduraradhyam means very, very difficult to worship. Worshipping Krishna is not very easy. It is very, very difficult. Why? Because when a person goes to the devatas, what happens is, Krishna says, Tatastha ashutoshebhyo labdha rajyam shuta uddataha, shriya uddataha. So when the devotees of devatas desiring some material benediction, they go to the devatas, what happens is, ashutoshebhyo. These devatas are ashutoshebhya. They are very easily satisfied. They have to go to them. There is some prescribed method given in the Vedas. Go and perform this yajna to the devata. Devata will be pleased. Whatever you ask, he will give you. So, he will give you Rajyam, Shriya. He will give you kingdom also. He will give you great opulence also. He will give you great beauty. Whatever you want, it will be granted to him. You just go and do one specific yajna for that purpose. Whatever your desire is, it will be granted. Very easily it will be granted. And because of this, very easily obtaining opulence and kingdom, what happens is, Shriyodhataha. The person becomes very, very arrogant and puffed up. The devata is not interested in the quality of the person, the character of the person. They only see, this devotee has pacified me with this, give him this in return. That's all. Whether he will become humble by that, he will be liberated from samsara, all these kind of things they are not interested in. Whereas Krishna, if somebody has to worship, if you go in arrogantly, Krishna will not grant your wish. If Krishna sees that by granting your wish you will become arrogant, Krishna will not grant your wish. Krishna wants that you should become humble. You should give up your desire for sense gratification. You have to become renounced. You have to develop vairagya. You have to develop atma jnana. Krishna wants all these things. All these things if you satisfy, then Krishna will consider your request. Whereas the devatas are not like that. Whatever happens to you, you go to hell, no problem. You have given me this, give this in return. It's purely a business transaction. And so like this, what happens further to those devotees, especially of Lord Shiva, Ganesha and all these personalities, and they acquire great wealth and opulence by worshipping them? One is they become arrogant, uddataha. Not only that, they become mattaha pramatta. They become mad after sense gratification, and they become totally inebriated, intoxicated with that wealth and opulence which they got by the blessings of the devata. And then what happens is, Varadan vismayanti avajanante. They start neglecting and insulting those very devatas who have given them these benedictions. Actually, we can see that in this material world also. Today, people are so well off compared to maybe 50 years, 60 years, 70 years back, when India gained independence. People were all so poverty-stricken. But today, people's disposable income has gone up so highly. People are leading much better standard of life. People have much more wealth and opulence. But what is happening? They have forgotten the Varadan, those devatas who have blessed them with all this opulence and wealth. And now people are becoming more and more atheistic. They've started questioning, what is all this Shiva, Ganesha, all these things? Why you have to pour Abhisheka to him? Why you have to offer him all these things? Better than that, why do you want to build a temple? Better is to build a hospital. So, Varadan, Vismayanti Avajanante, they start neglecting and insulting the very devatas who are Varadan, who have given them all the benedictions. So you see the difference in the results achieved by the devotees of the devatas and the devotees of Krishna. The devotees of Krishna, what happens? They become most humble, vinamra, and samsara pramuchyate, they go back to Godhead. Whereas the devotees of the devatas, what happens to them? Vismayanti avajanante varadan. Ultimately, they'll become bewildered, intoxicated by their wealth, they'll become arrogant, puffed up, and they will start neglecting the very devatas who gave them the benediction. So, the people are, the reason for people not worshipping Krishna is the difficulty involved in worshipping Krishna, because Krishna doesn't go by business transaction. He wants you have to become humble, you have to develop Atmajnana, you should progress back to Godhead, you should respect my devotees, you should become extremely humble, you should give up your desire for sense gratification, you have to develop Vairagya. So many conditions Krishna puts. So therefore people are not interested in becoming devotee of Krishna. Whereas they go to the devatas, Ashutoshebhya. They don't bother about your character. Your character, your personal life is different. Our dealing is different. That is the way modern people talk. A personal life, he may be a drunkard, womanizer, all that you keep it aside. You see his performance. Exactly, that's the way devatas also deal. Your personal life, you do whatever you want. You become arrogant, you become puffed up, you become drunkard, you become womanizer, whatever you want, you become. Well, you came to me for this, you have satisfied me with this, take this and go. Whereas Krishna, he will not tolerate all these things. So therefore, Krishna is Suduraradhyam, very, very difficult to please Krishna and to worship him. So, although we can see how Swayambhuva Manu enjoyed material life, when Krishna sees that the devotee will not be misled by material sense enjoyment, like it is being mentioned about Swayambhuva Manu here, although he was in the midst of Yogamaya, Nishnatam, Yogamayasu, Abhramsayitum Bhogana Shekuhu, all that sense enjoyment could not deviate him, could not bewilder him. So when Krishna is confident that this devotee has progressed sufficiently to be able to withstand the influence of my Maya, and he will not get deluded, and he will not deviate from the path of devotional service, then Krishna will shower him with opulence. Just like the Pandavas also were living opulently, Dhruva Maharaj was ruling over very opulently, even Swayambhuva Manu himself is living very opulently as the emperor of the world. So Krishna gives. But then, it is not easy, it is very, very difficult to come to that position. But if we come to that position, then we can rest assured that like the devotees of the devatas, we will not fall down because of getting inebriated by the material sense gratification. But on the other hand, we will samsarat pramuchyate. So actually we have to understand Krishna, when Krishna says, Yasyaham anugrinnami harishye tadhanam shanaihi. It is not actually harishye tadhanam shanaihi. Yasyaham anugrinnami samsarat pramuchyate. Anybody approaches Krishna, Krishna's thinking is, how will I deliver him from this samsara, from this material world? Therefore, we have to, we should not be disturbed if after coming to Krishna consciousness, after becoming a devotee of Krishna, if there are reverses in life, and if we come across situations where our wealth is, we are seeing in front of our eyes all our wealth getting lost, and our relatives turning against us, our friends turning against us, we don't have to get bewildered. These are all interim reactions. Interim reactions on the path back to Godhead. So, therefore, from the life of Swayambhuva Manu also we can understand what kind of opulence Swayambhuva Manu obtained is very, very rare in the life of a devotee of Krishna. So we should not expect that in our life also we will be opulent like that. On the other hand, we should expect that there will be reverses, there will be distresses, dukkha dukkhitam, all those things will come. But all those things are actually the blessings of Krishna. Krishna wants to teach us some characteristics, something we have to learn and go back to Godhead. So I'll stop here. If there are any questions or comments, we can discuss.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I keep meeting one astrologer regularly, just for...
Astrologer?
I keep visiting him once in a while, and
Yeah.
always there will be a big crowd in his office.
Yes.
Then he keeps suggesting some pariharas for the people. And so what exactly, do they all work in Kali Yuga, or do they get their karma changes, or what exactly happens with them?
The process of prayaschitta is given in the Vedas. It is bona fide, and definitely they will work, provided there is a qualified Brahmana who is performing those prayaschitta ceremonies. That's the reality. And also, we have to understand that the process of prayaschitta is not a foolproof one. Like Prabhupada was explaining the other day, in yesterday's class, I think Prabhupada was explaining how somebody like Subuddhi Raya, when the Muslims, they sprinkled some water on him. And at that time, those 500 years back, it was considered that anybody on whom a Muslim sprinkles water, that Hindu is automatically becomes a Muslim. So he became an outcast. He went and approached, Subuddhi Raya went and approached some Smarta Brahmanas and asked them, what is the parihara for this? How do I become free from this contamination that has come upon me, and I become an outcast? How to become free from this? So that Smarta Brahmana told him, the prayaschitta according to the Vedas is that you have to boil ghee, and that boiling ghee you have to drink, and when you drink that boiling ghee you will die, and the next life you will be freed of this sin. So he said, Arey, this is too much. So he thought, let me take a second opinion. Like nowadays when we go to some doctor, he will tell you have to undergo this test, that test, you have to undergo surgery. So we become afraid. What is this? So many big things he's telling. Better take a second opinion. And when you go to the second opinion, second doctor, he will trash. He will say, hey, forget all this. He'll write one small medicine and give, and he will get cured. So like that, he thought, let me take a second opinion. And he went to another Brahmana and asked him, like this, I heard that this is the prayaschitta. So that Brahmana said, no, nothing. You don't have to do anything. It was not your fault. You did not go and go to that Muslim's house and all those kind of things. So no need of all these things. Forget it. So Subuddha Rai became confused. Now, what should I do? So am I really an outcast or am I not? Should I do prayaschitta or not? He became confused. So if you go to one astrologer, he will give one prayaschitta. You go to another astrologer, he will give different kind of prayaschitta. Just like you go to a doctor or you go to a lawyer. If you go to one doctor with a disease, he will do one diagnosis and give you one medicine. You go to another doctor, he will give some other medicine. You go to a third doctor, he will give a totally different diagnosis and different medicine. This is how it is. You go to a lawyer with a litigation problem, he will give you one kind of advice. He will tell, do like this, you will win in the court. You go to another lawyer, he will tell, I have bekar advice he has given. If you go that way, you will get destroyed. Listen to me, you do this. And you take both the opinions and go to a third lawyer, he will have a totally different opinion. All of them are munis. Each one thinks differently. So like that astrologer also, you go to an astrologer, one astrologer will give you one solution. You go to another guy, he will give a different solution. Third guy you go, he will give a totally different solution. So if somebody has got faith in that astrologer, he can go and follow whatever he says. But fact is, even to execute those prayaschitta also, there are qualified brahmanas are not there in this Kali Yuga. So the process will also be maybe partially effective. If your fortune is good, if your karma is good, you may get a good brahmana, you may be able to perform the prayaschitta also. But in Kali Yuga, the best prayaschitta, the foolproof prayaschitta which you can do in Kali Yuga is chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. All your whatever prarabdha karma, aprarabdha karma, everything is there, everything will get destroyed. So that's the foolproof process in Kali Yuga. We don't have to bother to go to the astrologer and all those kind of things. Just execute Krishna consciousness and become free from all the karmas. Is that okay? Any other point? Yes, please.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
In Swayambhu Manu time, like his capital is Barishmati.
Yes.
So in that city where Lord Varahadeva air fall and became Kushagra has grown. Can you refer this present city which was previously Barishmati?
Present where it is, that you have to ask Swayambhu Manu only. Please don't ask me. Okay. Grantaraj Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai, Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol.